Hello, welcome back. Ryan's Thoughts and Cars. Ooh. I was just going through my list of videos. It's kind of all over the place for time. Stuff that I had recorded earlier, I had posted, I forgot what was in it. So it's not a linear progression of the videos that are coming up here. And the other thing too is I'm making videos and just recording them and then letting them sit in the just letting them sit in my private stash and then to figure out a date to release it, sort of thing. And if I feel it's pertinent, I'll just release it sooner than other ones, kind of thing. Fabulous sunrise this morning. Just left the gym. I really couldn't think of a topic. Like I'm currently just going through all the dating stuff in my head, and what I've decided, like in one of the last video, I think in that series, that 3 video series, I said I was going to start hitting on chicks in town, sort of thing. But yeah, meeting people in person, and I think that's the way to go. Of course, I mean the whole dating app thing. It's a total at this point. It's like a criminal scam, and how we've come to rely on them actually is kind of interesting. How all that worked out because they did all work in the beginning. They worked really well in the beginning for people. I remember this because I did a study on it. I was part of it. I was the generation that was part of it. And the people who really latched onto it were the boomers, and the boomers did really well with all those dating apps when they first came out. Because when the dating apps first came out, they were there to literally match you up. Nobody had a business profit model for any of these things. They just thought, hey, we'll charge people so that they can meet, like a matchmaker thing, right? We'll just charge people and then they'll meet on the app, and then, we'll get these success stories and then we'll post them all over, and then more people will come to use the app and more people will pay to use the app, sort of thing. And they did. They all worked. You would hear stories of we met on whatever it would be at the time. I think, Plenty of Fish, I think, was one of the first ones. So was what's that Christian one? I can't remember the Christian one. It was really big, but yeah. Then I think slowly over time, profit model had to change in order to keep these. Well, not just to keep these websites in business, but to up their profit sharing because big companies came in, publicly traded companies came in and started buying them all up, and it became more profitable for dating websites slash dating apps to make sure that people didn't hook up and keep them on the apps and keep them scrolling like addicts, right? Just like a drug dealer does. Like, it's pretty gangster, to be honest with you, how it works out. Like, I did a study back in 2016, and I think like Tinder had just come out, and I was in university as a 42-year old or something like that. I can't remember. I was fresh out of a divorce. Well, not fresh. I was a few years out of a divorce. I just ended a relationship with a lady. And the apps, I knew there was a problem with the apps before leaving to the island. But when I got to the island, it was a completely different experience because of the small population, I guess you could say. But it worked really. The app worked really well for me, and I was with this group, and we had to pick from a group of topics, and the topic everybody was interested in was online dating, and I was hoping that topic wouldn't come up because it's silly. But what ended up happening? So I'm with a bunch of 20-year-olds, right? And they were using the apps. Now we started collecting data, which was almost impossible to get from you can get your own personal stats requested from a website, but you cannot get general stats about how things work for people on the apps. And this was at the time when like Tinder had just come out and it went like wildfire because it was an app that actually worked when it first came out. All the other websites or all the other online dating platforms, people were having all kinds of problems with them. They were not matching, they were not meeting people, and it was just weird. It was really weird. eHarmony, that's what it was. So, websites like eHarmony had stopped working. Plenty of Fish had stopped working. OK Cupid had stopped working. Things like that, right? Bumble was still kind of new, and I had immediately written off Bumble. I had tried it, and it forced a guy to pay to read a message at the time. And I said, no, this is 100% profiteering. I get the concept of Bumble. I thought it was kind of a good idea that women approach first. That way, you're not wasting time as a guy. If you find out if you're not getting likes or whatever, then you get off the app. But there was, yeah, that all aside, the group that I was with were complaining that the apps don't work anymore. And what we were getting for data was mostly, like the case studies of people who met online eventually ended up in some sort of fantastic, wonderful long term relationship. Testimonials kind of thing, right? And any of the actual data of groups of people was old data. And it was for sites or platforms that were 55 and older. There was no data for like, regular people. And the data that it was showing us was these good things. There was this many people online, these many people matched, many people went off to, you know, greener pastures. They got off of these dating platforms, right? And all of this was looking too rosy for what the experience was of these teenagers, these young people, right? Me personally, I didn't have trouble on the dating website thing at the time. The island was small. I was a guy. There was more women than men. I did not have a whole lot of trouble. I didn't have trouble meeting women from dating apps, right? You had the few that would play in Ghost, but it was very rare. And and oh, I missed that thought. But anyway, yeah. So we were sitting around in a group, and we had to write this, APA paper on it and present it to the class. And everybody had this squinchy face when we were talking about this. What are we going to talk about? What did we find? Well, this is what we found, and we found, all this good stuff about these dating platforms. Generally speaking, it painted this rose-colored picture of this data that we were getting, and we had to, in the presentation, we had to throw, we had in the paper, or whatever. We also had to throw in that, you know, finding the data is impossible. They hold it as a secret, so you don't know what's going on out there in the real world in real time. These guys, these people are the gatekeepers. They don't want us to know what's going on with these dating platforms. And this is the data that we did find, and everybody in the class, as we're presenting this stuff, like they're all shaking their heads and they're going, this isn't, you know, this isn't the experience that I'm having." So yeah, so continuing on after that, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. Yeah, this is the thought that I missed. You know, I would take time off the apps because I didn't want the attention. Okay, let that sink in for a second. So I'm a guy. I was like 40 something at the time. You know how people, they download the app and they just leave it open and they'll message here and there or whatever, right? Or I don't know how people do it. Should say that. I should say it. I don't know how people do it. This day and age, and looking back, all the data, we have access to the data now, right? People have come out and said, this is what the dating apps, this is what's going on with them, and these are the numbers, and it's horrifying for guys. And it paints this weird picture of women, and it just the dating apps in general are basically gangster. you know, they're not there to help you find a date or match with anybody. They're there to try to, squeeze every last little dollar out of you. Is basically what it comes down to, for not matching with people and getting off the apps, right? You're paying money to keep paying money, right? You're not there to actually. They're not there. They're not set up for you to find anybody anymore. But I would the apps work so well for me that I had to turn them off because I didn't want the attention. I didn't want people messaging me. I did not want to be going out on dates, sort of thing, as a guy, which is, it tells you the disparity, or it's the polar opposite of what was happening in the Western world, in on I don't know, real life, off of my island, right? So when people complained about dating and then the apps, like, I did not get it at all. Right? It fell on deaf ears for me, and I could not sympathize with somebody who's having trouble on the app. I put it down to, well, you don't know how to communicate with people properly. Like, first of all, maybe I should give this rundown of dating apps. This is what I had when I figured out dating apps. After I got through the disillusionment that they're there for you to meet up in person, and it's just, two people trying to get together, um, and meet up in person. That's not what it's about at all. Well, I mean, that's what it's about, but you can't just be you, and they can't just be them. Um, the dating platform, whichever one you're using, you are basically marketing yourself. Now, you hear about this all the time when you go to sales seminars or investment seminars or self-help, personal growth seminars, right? And if you attend any of these, that comes that's the number one thing. Like, you're out there, you're selling yourself. If you're online, or if you're looking for a job and you're looking for resume help, that's the first thing that any competent recruiter or somebody who's helping you do your resumes and things like that, is that you're selling yourself, right? You have to present yourself in a certain way in order for somebody to want to follow up on that, right? So in looking for a job, your resume and how it's tailored, is a sales funnel, basically, right? You're you're putting that in. You're trying to get clients, the employers, to call on your thing. Now, dating websites, I immediately saw that as the same thing. going, okay, well, this is a sales funnel, right? This is an online presence, so you have to set it up and word things in a certain way in order for somebody to engage, right? And once you have the email, it's the same thing. You have to say things in a certain way in order to go to the next step, right? And it was the same. I used the same model as, you build a website, you have a product for sale, you build a website, and for you to get traffic to the website, you do certain things. But then when they're on your website, you set it up in a certain way that they end up in a certain place to click or not click. And then you now have a potential client, you have a potential sale sitting there. And then you have to online, word things a certain way or exchange messages in a certain way in order for them to sign up to buy something, sort of thing, right? It is all of that. And that's how I pictured the dating website thing. And that's probably why, you know, I did okay with the apps or the online dating platforms, right? The websites at the time, right? Because they really didn't turn into apps until Tinder took hold. Tinder didn't have a website. Well, they probably did, but nobody used it. It all went to the phone after Tinder. Like Tinder changed how dating works. It really did. It changed it really changed how dating worked. Not just dating on the apps, but dating in general, right? Because yeah, that's whatever it is. So yeah, I would have to turn off my app. So, and I'm not bragging, I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying that's the way it worked when I was living where I was, right? And with my group and doing this study and this paper, and it all felt so disingenuous. I keep using that word, but it felt so fake. It felt like it was a lie. Like we stood up in front of the class and everybody was so hopeful that we'd get to the bottom of this, right? Or get some sort of insight into this. Why it's why online dating is so screwed up. And this is back in 2016, 2017, something like that. And we couldn't. We went up there and we we said what the data showed, and the data showed that we found was, this is all working really well for people who use them. And we all knew it was a lie, but we had nothing to substantiate. We had nothing to substantiate that side of the argument other than to say that, any real data about real that is recent is being kept from us. And then after we had our presentation, we're talking to people, throwing up questions and having a little banter at the end. It was, like it doesn't seem right. Like everybody was on that. Like it seems like it's lying to us. It seems like, and we said, yeah, we had the same problem. We had these same discussions in the group. When we came back with all this data and we're compiling it and we're going through it, and everybody couldn't believe that this is the way it is because it isn't what's happening. It isn't what's happening out there right now. Now, they've, you know, the Wizard of Oz has been exposed, sort of thing. The gatekeepers behind the dating apps, and they are now going to have to change the models back to what they were to get people back interested because everybody hates the apps and the quality of people on the apps used to be you would have your few freaks, the outliers. But they were not the majority of what was on the dating apps when they first came out, or the dating platforms, the online dating platforms. You would have outliers. You would have the crazy women. You'd have the crazy guys who did all sorts of weird, evil things. But for the most part, most people on the you were dealing with regular people, and they would all pair off and be off the app, sort of thing, right? And before I left the island, I I quickly dipped my foot in the dating pool again. And it was mostly for me to see, am I over my hatred of women? Am I willing to go out there and find somebody? And let's see what's kind of out there. Kind of what I did here when I moved here. And I mean, that was a few years ago, quite a few years ago. But when I first got to the island, there was this matchmaking thing. It was in restaurants and stuff, that little card or whatever. And I'd see that, and it was like it was a singles event um, organizer person who put together singles events and things like that. And I laughed at that. Want I didn't think that was a real thing. I didn't think it was good. I had a bad opinion of it, but it was something I had thought. You know what? Maybe I should try. You know, as I get older here, I'm as I get older here, I should be more open to things like that. And that's what I did. I went to my first singles event, and the very first thing I that happened was I was being begged to go to these events. I signed up for my first one, and it was yay, yay, yay. And I talked with the organizer at the first. It was a mini golf thing, I think. But I went and talked with her, and I said, "Hey, how's it going?" She said, "Oh, I'm so glad you showed up. We're having so much trouble getting guys and this and that." I'm like, "Why they have?" Well, I could understand it on the island because guys were few and far between, sort of thing. But I was standing there and I'm looking around at the guys there, and I'm like, well, I can, hmm, like these guys ain't bringing their game to this. Like I was, I don't know. If I was a woman at those events, I would have been depressed as well. So show up. I think there was like 4 or 5 guys that showed up for this event, and there was probably about 20 or 30 women. And I thought, holy cow, okay, well, more for me, sort of thing. And just standing around chatting with people, found out that there's the women, the there was a core group of women there, probably 10, 15 women that were this is what they did. Like I thought, I'm not going there to find a date. I'm going out there. It was post COVID. Uh, it was post COVID, and I thought, I actually don't have any friends I'm hanging out with here anymore. Buddy I hung out with left the island. Um, and I thought, just to get back out and socialize, right? And so I went to these dating things, and I thought, I'll just go and I'll hang out and I'll do the events. If something happens, right? I'm not going there, and I'm not specifically going, but I'd leave these events. I'd have a good time there, of course. I think the first one was mini golfing. Then I think there was a few others, and off of that first event, you know, after the event ends, she sends you a message saying, "Are there people you're interested in?" Put down one or put down up to three or something like that, right? And would you be, do you want to accept interest from other people? And I got three people off of that one thing, and I was like, well, I kind of expected that. I showed up, I looked good and I'm sociable and things like that. And I was like, okay, okay. A couple of them weren't. There was. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. So I ended up going on a date with one of the ladies from that. Well, and then another date with another lady from that. She was one of the people who went. The first one, this was her first event too, and I went to that too, and so we kind of clicked on that. We played a round of golf, the, the last half, I think, together, sort of thing. The the other lady, I was like, you know what? I'll say yes. I don't know where any of this is gonna go. Let's just see. Let's meet what kind of personality it was. You know, maybe something will, maybe something won't. It wasn't my thing, but I'm like, I'm old, pool is shrinking. But she was one of the people on the circuit, right? She went to all the events, and they used them as social events, as a way to get out of the house, sort of thing. And the event, they got group discounts, and you could go do things for free. Bowling, kayaking, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, the first lady, it was okay, but she didn't work out. The second lady, I did see. I went on a date with her one night. We went to go eat, same place, sort of thing. And she was a crazy. Pink hair, tatted up. But the thing was is that every woman was that, and on the island, they're all showing sleeves and they're all dressed in nothing. And but this, she had, yeah, the pink hair and this and whatever. And I met her there, and I offered her a ride home, sort of thing, because she took the bus and it was a forever drive, and I knew exactly where she said where she lived, and I had lived like across her backyard in a house in the same area. And I said, "Yeah, I'll drive you home. We'll have a chance to talk on the way back," sort of thing. And she wouldn't stay quiet. She just kept talking, talking, and the more she was talking, the more I'm like, "Okay, I can't wait for you to get out of my car." She's like, "You gonna call me? You gonna call me?" I said, "Yeah, you know what? I'll probably text you later," or something like that. She goes, "Well," and then she wouldn't shut up at the door. She's standing there at the door with the door open. I'm like, "Okay, yeah, well, thanks. Have a good night," sort of thing. And then I had like a 10-minute drive to my house after dropping her off, and the texts didn't stop. Right? She was sending me paragraph after paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, and I think I could, yeah, just like, I'm not at home. I'm gonna have a sleep, like. And it didn't stop. And the whole next day, I actually took pictures of them and saved them, because I'm like, at this point, I don't feel safe. At this point, like, I don't know what this chick is, but it's crazy, and I don't know what's going to come of it. I'm taking pictures of this and I'm recording it, because if I have to take this to the cops, I want a record of it. So I don't know at this point. So that was my. Then the organizer emailed me, say, "Hey, do you want to show up? We need more men, and we'll pay your ticket for free, or you can show up for free," sort of thing, right? We just need more guys here if you want to come to this next one and this next one. And the experience I had from both of those women, I was like, this this pool of women, like, these are, you know, I don't want to use the term, it's kind of derogatory, but it's like, so, leftover people. Like, there's a reason nobody wants to date you guys. I do not want to go to these single events because that's what's there. I'm like, so I kept canceling all the next ones. I kept saying no, 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 and then eventually, it, it was like three events after that. The lady threw in the towel and closed the business. She offered the business for sale. She says, "I'm getting out of this. If anybody's interested, you can buy the business. It's only X amount of dollars, and it comes with all this stuff." Right? She threw in the towel. She she threw in the towel. She gave up on trying to get people together, sort of thing. And I get it, as a guy, half decent looking, going out there and being thrown into the single dating pool with, crazy women, which was strange because before the pandemic, I actually had no 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 crazy people off the apps. I never I can honestly say that on the island when I met up with these women, I did not meet any crazy women. They were all grounded. They were all sane. Um, yeah, and then when I went to those single events, that was that was my experience with it. I just stopped after that. I'm like, fuck, these people are crazy. You know what? The apps. Then I said, okay, I'm gonna just try the apps again, and the apps turned out to be the same thing. The apps turned out to be where it is now. Like I was having a lot of weird trouble with it. It wasn't like it was before. Trying to message people and talk with people became a real problem, and I think that's why I tried the singles event thing. Because I did get on the apps, and I'm like, this is really weird. Maybe it's because COVID, right? People just don't want to meet in person, sort of thing. Like something happened there, and that's why I went to the singles event. That's a story. 30 minutes. Um, yeah, the online dating, the single event thing. I, I almost tried to say a singles event here, out here. Like there was a singles event thing in the city, and I was like, should I sign up for that? And like, no, you know what? No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're just going to shut her all down, and then we're just going to go through life naturally, organically, right? Rather than doing all this driving and doing all of this, I'm just going to actually make myself more available in public. You know, socialize a little bit more when I'm out there, and we'll leave it at that. Because I'd much prefer it out here. People are a little bit more grounded. The communities are smaller. The family structure and relationships um, are bolstered. Like that, the talk is all about that out here. Um, People encourage it. Uh, Whereas in the city, it's not like that. It's all stranger danger, and everybody's out to be a predator, and it's better to stay single and lonely, sort of thing. But out here, it's not like that. It's you find a good man. I was on the date with my lady the other night in the middle of the week, and she, I went with this group that I drive bus for, but I wasn't driving. She said, "Hey, we got extra tickets. Do you want to come?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I asked the lady to come. And then I should probably say this for another video. But I was sitting at the table, and she's meeting, basically my boss, sort of thing, the person that I'm working with to do all of this. Um, she did say, out here, and this sums it up perfectly. Even the guy I'm talking with, the guy I work with, he says stuff like this too. People out when I go for lunches and stuff with people out here, they say the same sort of phrase. She said, "Oh, I thought you guys were dating for a long time," and Ryan didn't tell me about that. And then said, because if if there's a good, yeah, you see someone good, you snatch them up and right away. Like they all get taken right away. All the good ones get taken right away. All the good ones get taken right away. That's what she said. But I hear that out here, like people support relationships. People want to be in a relationship. They wonder why you're not married. They wonder why you don't have kids. They wonder why They don't wonder why. They just say you should be married. You should be dating somebody. You should be trying to have kids. You should be, living together. You should be, it's supporting those old traditional family values sort of thing. And that's what it is out here. Whereas, I don't know what's happening in the city and the single women thing that's going on there. It's not that. Like, they're not getting talked to by people at work saying, how come you're not married yet? Or how come you aren't in a relationship? You shouldn't be single. You should be with a guy. Things like that, right? And that narrative, that behind the scenes narrative, is what's missing, you know, not just in dating in general, I guess, but that's what's, missing with people on the apps. People on the apps, maybe they are trying to find people, but the apps are not set up for that, right? So you have to meet somebody in person. And somebody in the comments said that to me, or a few people have said that to me in the comments. And thank you very much for saying that. And that's the way to go. And that's what I'm doing. Join me on the journey. Thank you very much for watching. I know I rambled a little bit. Thank you for sticking around. I appreciate it. Say something in the comments. Hit like if you like something, and I'll see you on the next one.